Chair Pryor, we are ready to begin when you are.
Okay, if you're on the board, please show your video so we know you're present. And not quite a majority yet. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Okay. All right, that brings us to the special meeting of the Board of Retirement. And our first order of business is call to order and roll call.
Thank you, Chair Pryor. This meeting is being held virtually, so I will do a roll call of the trustees to confirm attendance. Mr. Knox and Mr. Robbins will not be participating in our meeting today. Ms. Gray?
Sorry, present, and good morning to everyone.
Great, thank you. Mr. Santos?
Good morning, present.
Mr. Sanchez?
Present, good morning.
Mr. Moore?
Good morning, I'm here.
Mr. Kehoe?
Good morning, everyone.
Mr. Harris? Okay,
Don't
Mr.
need it.
Your audio is not working, but I do have you present. Ms. Zapanta? Mr. Bernstein?
Top of the morning, everyone.
Thank you, and Chair Pryor?
Good morning.
Great.
Mr.
Staff?
Harris, looks like Mr. Harris is having some microphone problems. I didn't hear him chime in.
Good now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, sorry. Okay, go ahead.
No problem. Staff participating in the meeting include CEO Santos Kryman, Deputy CEO Louis Lugo, Assistant Executive Officers JJ Popowich and Laura Guglielmo, CIO John Grable, Chief Counsel Stephen Rice, Senior Staff Counsel Frank Boyd and Fern Billingy, Legislative Affairs Officer Barry Liu, Disability Litigation Staff include Vincent Lim and Eugenia Durr. Staff and managers participating today include Carlina Toya, Kathy Delino, Sammy Bong, Cookie Harania, Celso Templo, Ted Granger, Cassandra Smith, Tamara Caldwell, Vicky Neely, Carrie Wilson, Hernan Barrientos, Ricardo Salinas, and Louis Gittins. LACERA's medical advisor, Dr. Glenn Arisman, will also be participating. And consultants include Nick Collier and Craig Glide from Milliman. Trustees, please use the Zoom chat option to be placed in the queue. At this time, we ask all meeting participants to mute their mics until you are ready to speak. And now we may proceed with the agenda.
Thank you, Bonnie. Brings us to the first order of business, which is approval of the minutes of September 7th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Motion Santos,
Second.
second by Kehoe.
Great, I'll do a roll call now. Mr. Santos,
Yes.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
great. Mr. Sanchez,
Yes.
Mr. Moore. I'll come back to you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
great. Mr. Bernstein
Aye.
and Mr. Moore.
Aye for the minutes.
Great. The item passes unanimously by all trustees present.
Thank you. That brings us to public comment. We did have one written public comment submitted, and it was emailed to the board, and that it was from Randy McKee, who's the survivor of Jeffrey McKee, case 5269B. I'm assuming everybody has received and read the written comment. If you have not, let me know and we'll go ahead and read it for the record. See nobody taking advantage of that option. It is being submitted and made part of the written record. That brings us to executive update. And first part of that is the LACERA All-Stars. JJ.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to trustees. This is the time of the meeting of the month when we recognize those folks that have gone above and beyond a call of duty, helping out members and their fellow staff members. And so you'll see their names and their faces on the screen there. So please join me in thanking and recognizing Janelle Surian, Hernan Barrientos, Rebecca Yu, Soledad Cortez, and Liping Lee is our rideshare recipient, and there was no web watcher for this month. So thank you very much for all that you do. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, JJ, and thank you to all our all-stars for this month. Next is Chief CEO report, Mr. Kryman.
Yes, Chair Pryor, trustees, good morning, everyone, and staff. Very quickly, the Chief Executive Officer report was pretty thorough. It describes in great detail a lot of the initiatives that we're following through on. I did want to mention that assuming that item, I think it's 6A, passes, we're preparing for a hybrid public meeting in November. So those trustees that are interested in attending in person, we'll be reaching out to you all to make sure that we're ready for the November meeting. So it will be a hybrid. The approval of that particular item will allow for teleconference as well as in-person meetings at the same time. So did want to mention in terms of the returning to the boardroom. I know that Bonnie's been working very, very diligently getting the new PrimeGov one meeting system in place. And she's scheduling times for the trustees to be trained on that particular new system. And so you should await a call from Bonnie to make sure that she walks you through all of the new features of that new public meeting program that we're going to be rolling out, I believe, in January. We did I put forth on the agenda the results of the election that are for the safety member election. The individual, Mr. Green, Jason Green, will become part of the LACERA family beginning on January 1st. So we will be reaching out to him and making sure that we begin his orientation once the Board of Supervisors certifies the election, which hopefully is mid-October. And so I did reach out to Mr. Green and had a really good conversation with him about some of the duties and some answer to some of his questions that he had. And so we're moving forward to making sure that we orient him and he'll be able to hit the bricks running in January. In terms of recruitment, there's a very detailed list of the efforts that we were doing. I did want to mention that we did just release job bulletins and exams for HR positions. I believe we have 9 vacant HR positions, and so we're hopeful to be able to fill those as quickly as we possibly can to alleviate some of the pressure in terms of recruitment and retention of our existing staff, as well as new members that we need to bring on board. And so I know that Carly is working diligently on that. We're focused in on the hires for the investment section. I believe that Mr. Grable and his team are interviewing folks as we speak. And we'll be making the selection hopefully by the end of October, so that we can bring the new investment members on board. So that is really all that I have to report on. I'd be more than happy to stand for questions. Sure.
I got a quick question, Mr. Pryor.
Yeah, sure, go ahead. I still have to bring up my chat feature. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, that's with regards to Mr. Green, Mr. Kryman.
Yes.
I know in the past, if I remember correctly, once the election was certified by the Board of Supervisors, the trustee was allowed to begin travel for educational purpose. The reason I'm mentioning that is, I don't know what classes are available right now, but it will be a good idea, if my recollection is correct, in terms of his ability to begin travel within the limits of the travel policy, obviously, to offer, suggest, encourage him to attend any classes that will help him prepare for his duties on both boards, in particular the Board of Investments. Have you thought about that?
We definitely have been, we'd like Mr. Green to go through the internal orientation before he begins his travel. It's going to be pretty extensive because he sits on both boards. He will be sitting on both boards, I should say. And so we have identified some courses that we think would be beneficial for him, some introductory courses in terms of being a new trustee, what his responsibilities are, his fiduciary responsibilities, both on the investment side and the board of retirement side. And so we will be working with him to make sure that his schedule is clear and he's available for the orientation. I know that he had asked for some materials that we provided to him for orientation purposes, but I think that as we get through the holiday, there's very limited courses that I think would be beneficial for him. I think that he more than likely will be traveling after January 1st when he is sworn in as the trustee on the safety member side. But yes, we will definitely look at what his schedule is. If there's a course that he would benefit from, there are some virtual courses that I think he might benefit from as well. And so we'll make sure that he's fully oriented and ready to go in January.
Good. Thank you for that.
Seeing no more questions, let's go ahead and move on. That brings us to disability retirement applications on the consent calendar. Stand by, please. Here. Pages 1 and 2 are SCD consent calendar for safety, law enforcement, sheriffs.
I'll move them.
I'm sorry.
I said I'll move them.
We have a motion by, let me give the numbers first there. Hold on, Sean. 796 through 813. 796 Calica through Dale Fairley. 796 to 813. Go ahead, Sean.
I'll amend my motion to include those.
All right, we have a motion.
Second.
Yeah, second.
Second by Mr. Santos.
Wait, Miss Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Santos,
Yes.
Mr. Sanchez,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Kehoe.
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Bernstein.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously by all trustees present.
Thank you. Cal Locott. Okay, got it. And that brings us to page 3, which is Sheriff Lifeguards Consent Calendar SCD, 1520 Richie Salisbury through 1526 David Chetwood. And Pryor makes the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bernstein.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Santos,
Yes.
Mr. Sanchez,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Bernstein, Chair Pryor.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously by all trustees present.
Thank you. So we did have a case pulled by Mr. Harris out of the consent calendar for general members. No, this is a safety member. Well, 2451. Okay. So the general member consent calendar, please save 2451 Lee Goldman. 2451 Lee Goldman will be taken up after we do the non-consent calendar and revised cases. But I do need a motion for 2446 through 2445. I'm sorry, 2436 through 2452, exclusive of 2451.
I'll
Move
move.
approval.
We have a motion by Mr. Santos,
A second.
second by Mr. Harris.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Santos,
Yes.
Mr. Sanchez,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Keel,
Aye.
Mr. Bernstein.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously by all trustees present.
Thank you, and remember, we have that case we have to save. So that brings us to non-consent calendar, and we,
Did you
We will
skip the
s-
consent items?
yep, we just did the consent items, so let's get to the agenda consent items. First is item A through item D. Does anybody want to pull any of the consent items? No, let's go ahead with the vote.
I need a motion, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll move.
Second,
Motion Harris, second Gray. Please call the roll.
Ms. Gray,
This is the consent calendar, Chair Pryor.
Yes.
aye.
Mr. Santos,
Yes.
Mr. Sanchez,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Keel,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Bernstein.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously by all trustees present.
Thank you. No items were pulled from the consent calendar. That brings us to agenda item 8, non-consent items. First is a recommendation by Mr. Granger. This is item A, a recommendation by Mr. Granger that the board shall decide whether to award Star Cola program for 2023, determine the cost on an ad hoc basis of $231,000 to restore eligible retirees to an 80% benefit level, or if awarded, determine Star Cola benefits will be awarded on a permanent basis of $2,467,000. Do I have a motion? And if you do make the motion, please, it should be 1, 2, or 3.
Mhm.
I'll move that we adopt the Star Cola on a permanent basis.
We have a
Second.
motion for adoption of a permanent Star Cola.
I'll second it.
We had a second before that, and who was it?
Me, Wayne.
Mr. Moore, thank you.
Okay.
Motion Harris, second Moore for the option to have this awarded on a permanent basis. Option 3, have awarded on a permanent basis going forward.
Ms. Gray, did you have a question?
I do, thank you. Mr. Granger, thank you so much for this summary. It is not the easiest to understand, so I'm going to really tell everybody, in case you don't want to ask any questions, it's difficult to understand all of this, especially when we had 3 choices. And so am I correct in understanding that this applies to only to certain members who retired before, I think, 1991?
Yes. Good morning, Trustee Gray. Thank you for the question. Yes. So the calculation is essentially based on the COLA bank balance or the COLA accumulation account of these particular members. So the COLA bank balances are tracked by plan and by retirement year. So when based on the annual COLA award, when amounts are added to the COLA bank balance and that bank balance exceeds the 20% for those particular members, then we can consider the Star Cola award. So in this particular instance, there's 418 retirees that are currently eligible for the award that the board is considering today. Those members are in Safety Plan B, General Plans B, C, and D. It would be a 3.1% award for members who retired on or before March 31, 1990, again, based on their bank balance. There would be a 0.5% award for members who retired between April 1, 1990 and March 31, 1991. Again, 418 members. There are, of course, a significant number of members who are not currently eligible based on their bank balance. Safety Plan A retirees, General Plan A retirees, General Plan E, and PEPRA Plan Safety C and General G. members in those plans are currently not eligible for this particular award. Additional members could be eligible in future years for awards based on their COLA bank balance. That's why we monitor that balance every year.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Santos, your hand was up. Is it now down?
Yeah, he's down. I had the same question as Vivian. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a quick question, Mr. Granger. Have we ever taken the first option and done an ad hoc temporary restoration of the Star Cola? I can't ever remember us doing that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I did go back and look at some of the historical materials, and in the late 1990s and early 2000s, subsequent to establishing the Star Reserve, again, this is going back to the 1994 pension obligation bonds that the county issued. The pension fund became 100% funded, and there were surplus earnings. Those earnings were used to establish the Star Reserve. So when the Star Reserve was first funded, and the board was considering these Star Cola awards, and I want to say late 90s, it was done by the board on an ad hoc basis. And what that means is that each time a Star Cola award was made, it was only enacted for 1 year. And then staff would bring back a memo to the board and ask for that award to be re-awarded the following year. And in addition to that, it gets a little bit more complicated because that second year, there could be other eligible retirees that could be eligible for the Star Cola. So it does get a little bit more complicated when you approve it year by year. We can do it that way, but again, it just makes it a little bit more complicated from a staff perspective.
Ted, if I could just add something here.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, so in the 90s, there was not the option to make it a permanent Star Cola.
No.
So, and that's when it was adopted on ad hoc basis.
Because I want to think early in my trustee years, we had actually taken quite a few of the years that we did a ad hoc temporary basis and made those permanent with excess funding. But
yes, your recollection is correct, Chair Pryor. We did do that, and I believe that was in the 2008. That was in 2008 for the 2009 year. We did look back and make those ad hoc awards permanent going forward.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I think the rest should be probably brought up elsewhere. But I'm just curious why we even have the option of a ad hoc basis going forward in the future. Ms. Gray.
Okay. You've given us, there are several options that we need to decide on. I know the motion was just to adopt it on a permanent basis, but it seems like there are certain steps that we have to take before that. So my question is, what is the effect of just us deciding, okay, let's just do it on a permanent basis? Does that cover the fact that we are agreeing to award the Star Cola for 2023? And if we do it on a permanent basis, does that mean that this issue will never come before us unless somebody puts it on the agenda? Will it not come before us? And the effect is that every time there is a 20% balance, or am I wrong, is these members would get their Star Cola? In other words, this is not a well that runneth over forever. What is the effect of this vote to say, yeah, we want to award this on a permanent basis?
Okay, I'll give it a try, Trustee Gray, and maybe Nick can help me with some of the technical explanations.
Maybe I didn't articulate my question clearly. I just want to know, what is the effect of a positive vote to instill this on a permanent basis, knowing that, we don't have money infinitum, you know, it's just, what does this affect? And it is only for 418 individuals, correct? Or 400 and whatever.
Yes, 418, you're correct. And yes, you've been very clear. So for the, it does impact the 418 members. And like I mentioned, there's two sets of members. One part of the membership would receive the 3.1%. The other part would receive the 0.5. On a permanent basis, that amount will be added to the retiree's base allowance.
Okay.
And so permanently, meaning going forward, that factors into, that amount would factor into their base allowance for the annual COLA, the April COLA. So they would get that. And then next year, we will go through the same process. We will come to the board to discuss the annual COLA in April. Then in August, we will go back and look at the COLA bank balances again. So when we look at it again next year for the 2024 award, we will be looking at everybody's COLA bank balance, including this membership. So this membership will get it this year, they'll reset to 20%, and then we'll look at their balances again next year, in essence, the entire retiree population balances to see where we're at and make this assessment. In terms of the funding, we do have the STAR reserve, money that was set aside to pay these benefits. That STAR reserve balance at LACERA is $614 million. So if the board decides to make the award today at the 2.467 million, we will be taking that money from the STAR reserve essentially and putting it in what we call the employer reserve. And that money will be paid out of the employer reserve to fund these benefits, these 418 retiree benefits for the 418 members. So it's kind of a, when you make it permanent, it's sort of awarded, and then it's a go forward. We take a look next year because it essentially, it sort of resets everybody to the 20% balance, if that makes any sense.
It does. So going forward, once these 418 individuals are awarded the STAR COLA, that will be their base pension benefit. And any further COLAs and STAR COLAs will be considered again. Is that correct?
Yes, that is exactly correct.
So they will not suffer any decrease in their benefits depending on the CPI at all?
They will not, no.
Okay. All right.
Thank
I think
you.
that would be the fear of everyone is like, well, am I going to have this amount this year, but next year it's going to go down? You know, that is a fear I'm sure that every retiree would have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you, Ted. That was a very clear explanation of the program. Mr. Santos.
Yes, thank you. So educate me here for a few minutes. So the monies that are allocated for the STAR COLA comes from excess earnings, correct?
Yes.
And so if that's true, how, help me understand, how is it that we are able to allocate that for those individuals who retired before 1991? How do we know that that applies just to them, not to the other ones? How does that work? And the second question is the April regular COLA is subsidized by 50% from the active employees and 50% from the employer?
I'm sorry, Trustee Santos, could you repeat that last question as far as the 50-50?
Am I correct to say that the funding for the April COLA for March 31st is paid by 50% of it is paid by the active employees, and the other 50% is paid by the county? Is that true?
I can take that one, Ted.
Yes, sir.
Yes, on the second part of the question, yes, that's correct. I mean, it's over a long term, but effectively when we do the actual calculations every year, we say, how much is that COLA going to cost long-term? You talked about the COLA, the COLA, and we assign half to the members and half to the employer.
Thank you for that. Now, to the original question, Ted, you understand my question?
I think so. Let me give it a try. So in 1994, the county set aside, the county issued pension obligation bonds to fully fund LACERA. Over the course of the next few years, into the late 90s, LACERA became fully funded. In fact, LACERA became overfunded, and I want to say about 103% was the peak. Actually, it was 103.3. The LACERA and the county agreed upon there was an agreement whereby the excess earnings would be set aside. Part of the earnings would go to the employer reserve, and part of the earnings would go to this STAR reserve. And so the STAR reserve was money set aside for the future to pay for STAR COLA benefits. So that's essentially the funding part. LACERA's Board of Investments did adopt a retirement benefit funding policy that does essentially cover these elements in terms of being able to pay the STAR COLA benefits out of the STAR reserve. So we do have that documented. As far as these particular members, again, we track the COLA bank balances every year. The process is that we start out with the annual COLA, and we look at the CPI. If that CPI amount, so for example, in August, it was 5.3. If Plan A members receive an annual COLA, the April COLA of 3.0, that is below the 5.3 CPI. If that were the CPI, for example, in December, we would add the 2.3, the excess balance, to the COLA bank account for those Plan A members. Now, the COLA bank account is tracked based on the year you retire. So depending upon when you retire, your bank balance could be 0. It could be 10%. It could be 10.0. Regardless, we would add that 2.3 to your bank balance for Plan A in this example. Once that bank balance gets to be above the 20%, that is what we're doing with this process right now, is we're coming to the board and we're saying, please consider awarding the STAR COLA because these particular members have the bank balance that is above the 20%. So I think your question was, why is it for just this particular group of members? And that is because it's all based upon that accumulation of that COLA bank balance, which we track every year, that starts out with the annual COLA. And so again, we will take a look at this in August of 23, and we will look at the bank balances, and we will see if there's a potential for another STAR COLA award, and we will come to the board and ask you for that, and based on the analysis like we presented here last month and this month.
If I could just add one thing to Ted, that was a great description, but just kind of looking at the specific situation, the reason it's this group is these are people who are getting the 2% statutory COLA instead of the 3%. So, or the maximum 3%. So these people, many years when CPI has been high, they've only been getting 2%. For the Plan A individuals, will be getting 3%. So their COLA accumulation account has grown faster. And that's combined with the fact that these individuals have been retired for at least 30 years. So they've had a larger accumulation in their COLA bank.
Great, thank you very much. That was really helpful on in support of the motion.
Yes, thank both of you, Nick and Ted, for some excellent explanation there. And are there any other comments? We do have a motion and a second to permanently, on a permanent basis, restore eligible retirees to 80% benefit level, effective January 1st, 2023. Let's go ahead with the roll call, please.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Santos,
Aye.
Mr. Sanchez,
Aye.
Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Bernstein.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously by all trustees present.
Thank you. That brings us to item B on the non-consent items. This is the second reading of a request to engage with Questica to provide software and consulting services for first-year cost of $136,000, license fee of $60,000, and project is budgeted under Systems Division Technology Modernization Projects for the coming fiscal year for $150,000. This is the second reading. We did have a presentation last meeting of this issue. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns, or want to have the presentation redone for this agenda item?
Move approval.
We have a motion. We have a second by Ms. Gray. Seeing no requests, let's go ahead and call the roll.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Santos,
Aye.
Mr. Sanchez,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Bernstein.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously by all trustees present.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Kathy.
Thank you.
Cesla.
Thank you.
Item C of the non-consent items is from Carlos Barrios that determined based on medical evaluation that Hector Inzunza is not incapacitated for duties assigned to his position. Memo is attached. Do we have a motion?
Move to grant the application of Mr. Nzunza.
Okay.
Inzunza. We have a motion, Gray, second by Kehoe. Go ahead for the roll.
Ms. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Santos,
Aye.
Mr. Sanchez,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Kehoe,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Bernstein.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously by all trustees present.
Thank you. We have report items A through E under 9, section 9 reports. These are all information only and do not require any presentation. Are there any questions? Seeing no items to be pulled, that brings us for items for staff review.
We do not have any items to report for items for staff review and items for future agendas.
Thank you. Let's go with the order.
Ms. Gray.
Thank you so much. I really want to thank staff for their very, especially Mr. Granger and Nick from Millman. The report was very extensive. I appreciated the history. It was very good reading. Even though I had to ask a lot of questions for understanding, it was very thorough and I appreciate that. Further, the other reports that were given, I appreciate staff's work on that. I mean, just reading it, I realized the amount of work that goes into it, particularly Mr. Kryman's report. It answered so many questions that I had regarding our hiring, where we are, our LACERA benefits, the call-ins. I appreciate that, but more importantly, the retiree healthcare. That is always a question that we as employees, active employees and retirees have regarding retiree healthcare. And I appreciate that report, Mr. Kryman. Thank you so much.
Mr. Santos?
Yeah, I just want to echo everything that Vivian said. I agree totally. Great reports. Good job. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you to staff. Thank you, everybody.
Mr. Moore?
I appreciated the effort that went into the STARS program report because I finally got it after looking at it multiple times. And it's basically the way I interpreted it is you got people who don't make a lot of money already. And if you give them a little bit, and then take it away, that doesn't seem fair somehow. So anyway, I appreciate all the information on that. It was a great job. Thanks.
Mr. Keough?
Thank you. I agree. Echo what Mr. Moore says, and I heard Mr. Pryor alluded to having conversations offline. So hopefully we can discuss how we do this in the future. This should probably be a consent item kind of scenario, but I don't want to get into the meat and potatoes. So I don't know if we want to have a future discussion on the topic in the boardroom, or if this is something that staff can look at in the future. Because to me, this is a no-brainer. An ad hoc benefit would not be a good route. But appreciate all the staff hard work, and looking forward to the rest of the meeting.
Mr. Harris?
Well, since I really get a chance to vote, I had a prepared message here. It goes on for about 25 minutes, but I'll stop with that. And I just thank everyone for all their hard work, and I'm glad to be here.
Mr. Bernstein?
I was so looking forward to Mr. Harris's monologue, but maybe another time. It's good to see everybody, and thank you, staff, as always, for all the work.
Ms. Guglielmo? No comments?
Sorry, nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Popovich.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to recognize that we Mr. Barrios, who's been a longtime staff member of LACERA, and most recently was filling in as our interim benefits division manager, has taken another position at another organization, and I'm very proud of him and wish him the best in his new role. In the interim period, as we shared with the trustees, Louis Gittens will be the interim division manager for the benefits division, and we will be doing an exam coming up shortly to fill the role permanently. But I did want to just welcome Mr. Gittens into his new role for the next few months while we move to fill the position permanently. Thank you.
Mr. Lugo?
Thank you, Bonnie, and good morning, everyone. And I also want to welcome Louis Gittens as well in his new interim role, and wish Carlos Barrios so much success in his role as well. I do want to highlight and acknowledge Kathy Delano as well as Cookie. They put together the budget recommendation, and I appreciate the board's support. And it's more than a consultant type of engagement. This is a budget solution that we're going to be implementing that's really going to serve us well at LACERA. So I appreciate the efforts of the team as well as the consultant that we hired to help us do this engagement, but looking forward to the implementation aspect of this new budget system. So thank you.
Mr. Kryman?
Nothing more to add. I just wanted to wish Mr. Barrios all the best in his new assignment. I believe it's Alameda County that he's going to. And so we'll keep an eye on Alameda County, make sure they keep their nose out of the LACERA business. But no, it's well-deserved, quite frankly. And I want to compliment JJ as well, because through his mentorship, Carlos was able to gain the experience that he needed to go into his new role. And so we look forward to making sure that we have continuing communications with Carlos and Alameda County and the rest of the Searle pension funds moving forward. I also wanted to just compliment Ted for his presentation. I thought he did a really good job of summarizing very complicated calculations and a topic. And so we appreciate the discussion, and we will definitely take back some of the suggestions in terms of making a recommendation in terms of a permanent future COLA awards as opposed to ad hoc annual COLA awards. And so we'll have a discussion internally about that, and we'll move forward next year when we, if this topic comes forward. I also wanted to recognize Kathy Magida, and also Cassandra. The trip that we took to Chicago was very enlightening, quite frankly, and it connected a lot of dots in terms of the lifetime maximum benefit and the cost of the specialty drugs. Just so you know, we have about 118 members that are approaching the $1 million cap. And we have approximately 980 individuals that are using specialty drugs through the Anthem plans. And as Mr. Murphy pointed out, those 980 individuals take up, I believe he said 60 to 70% of the premiums that are being paid, or the costs. So it was very enlightening. Looking forward to resolving the lifetime maximum benefit with the county, our county partners. Just wanted to say thanks to the trustees for all of your support. Moving forward in the past, today, and moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you, and Chair Pryor.
Thank you. Yeah, just to kind of refine my comments on Star Cola, it just seems odd that every year we have this choice of a temporary award or the permanent increase, permanent basis increase for Star Cola. It's subjecting the issue to political whims every year, when I think that we all, I haven't seen a lot of dissent among board members, especially considering the amount of reserves that we have laid aside for a permanent increase in Star Cola. I think that the will is there, the reserves are there to streamline this a little bit. And I'm asking Ted and possibly our actuaries to maybe give us a way that we can make this a process that's more automatic this year and a little less susceptible to political discussions and political considerations. Also, I did want to talk about an item for a future agenda. This would be a special meeting. I'd like to talk one more time about the board meetings going live. I think there are a couple of pretty big issues that we have to discuss. And first and most important is what's going to happen if we open up live board meetings, but nobody comes? And what does that look like? Is it me sitting at the lectern at LACERA, running a board meeting on my laptop computer? That doesn't seem to, I might as well do that at home. And anybody else that comes to the board meeting, are we just going to come there, open up our laptops and sit there and basically attend a board meeting on our laptop? And I don't know if that makes sense or not. There are some other considerations. I'd like a little bit of an overview about the technology that we're going to use and whether that's going to be used for the board meeting or if we're going to continue with Zoom or not. I think something like that would require both boards' attendance, and possibly we can schedule one more of the joint board meetings before we do go back to live in November. If we go back to live in November, I'm very curious about how many people are actually going to be attending live if we do go ahead and call everybody to the boardroom. With that being said, thank you. And thank everybody for their careful consideration on the Star Cola. It's quite a benefit that we're able to offer, and it's the right thing to do. With that being said, are there any more items, Ms. Smalley?
No other items.
Thank you. That takes us to closed session and the non-consent calendar for service-connected disability.
One moment while we clear the meeting platform.
Let's go ahead and take, I tell you what, let's go ahead and take about a 6-minute break here. We'll get back together at 10:05 so people can take care of things. 10:05.